Did you think we had forgotten? Did you think we had forgiven? Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken!
On point. And this time, it's World of Warcraft. Just like all of it. Whether you love it or hate it, it's definitely a game that's earned its own unique place in the pages of gaming history. It propelled its developer, Blizzard Entertainment, from being a successful game maker to becoming part of a giant games conglomerate, which is now being acquired by a monolithic tech conglomerate. It's been associated with legal battles, drama, and all sorts of other greasiness in recent years that I won't get into here, due to the company culture of its developers and management in that games conglomerate. It's been accused by some of its players of increasingly greedy and player-unfriendly business practices around monetization and its demands on the player's time, even as one of the last examples of a MMO with a monthly subscription fee. It's offered players the seemingly rushed releases and confusing stories of the last two expansions, driving players away in increasing numbers. But it is a game which, although it's been proclaimed dead on countless occasions for countless reasons, it refuses to die. And despite that, can still captivate the attention of so many former players that classic servers emulating the game's early years are now a thing. And those are nearing the era of the second expansion, when the game had its highest subscriber count of all time. So this is all very relevant to me, because I am one of those former players. And that second expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, was my jam. But at some point between the fourth and fifth expansions, I kind of just became a lurker who would check out the news or come back for a tour of Azeroth every once or twice a year, maybe level a new alt every once in a while. Now, I haven't logged in for quite some time, but I still lurk the news channels and the forums, and every once in a while I've thought about playing the game again. The classic servers really piqued my interest enough to where I've even updated the game client once or twice. But every time, just as I'm ready to swipe my card and take that leap into the game, something new pops up, either in-game or IRL, to keep me away. And the latest one has got me so confused, and I'm just so frustrated with this cycle, that I'm resurrecting my old YouTube channel to rant about it. So I started playing WoW during the first expansion, the original The Burning Crusade, or TBCOG. I played it like I would any single-player RPG, just kind of bumbling my way through the systems until I figured it all out. And this made it take forever to level with my enhancement shaman, to the degree that I didn't even see the max level zones for the expansion that I'd bought until the next one had already been released. Along the way, I became captivated with that world, even though I had only played Warcraft 2 before and not Warcraft 3, which WoW is heavily based on. It was still rooted in the Azeroth I knew before, and had this whole crazy new continent to explore called Kalimdor. But like I said before, my favorite memories of playing the game happened during Wrath of the Lich King. As soon as that poor old shaman hit level 55, my new Blood Death Knight took over as my main character. I got him to level 80 quick, since Death Knights were pretty OP to start. I didn't know that at the time, I just knew it felt good after the long slog that I'd had getting to 55 with the other guy. At level 70, and after I had the gold, I could finally fly after months upon months of being grounded. I started looking at guides and reading the news about upcoming patches. At max level, I pretty much only did two things with my time: Winter Grasp and random heroics via the Dungeon Finder. And I stuck with the game for a while after that, keeping an active subscription for more months out of the year than not. I was excited for the changes to the old world in Cataclysm, the next expansion, and I thought that was a really good expansion, though I get the feeling I might be in the minority on that. You could fly on all of Azeroth at that point, which worked out just great for me. The follow-up expansion to that, Mists of Pandaria, was also good. After I got over the whole Kung Fu Panda's Secret Island concept of that expansion. But the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor, had a feature which caused me to nope out, and I quit without any intention of returning for quite some time. It was Pathfinder, which is presented as a neat way to earn the ability to use flying mounts in the new zones for the expansion, instead of just buying the privilege from some vendor somewhere, which doesn't make a lot of sense in universe. And they rightfully still wanted to prevent immediate access to flight, so that players would actually have an opportunity to experience the good-looking and interconnected new zones they'd spent 2 years handcrafting and polishing. But to me, the way they did Pathfinder was just too much. You had to do basically everything in the expansion story and side quests. So it already made for the longest grind to earn flying in any expansion since flying was introduced in the first expansion. To me, it was an obvious way of time-gating the players, making them struggle through sometimes dense groups of mobs multiple times, day after day, while traveling back and forth between areas, trying to do the things that they actually wanted to do. I think it was the first egregious example of taking something away from the players just to make them earn it again. And the absolute worst detail was that it was a multi-part achievement, which couldn't be completed until a future content patch months later. I decided at that point that I wasn't going to buy the expansion until I could fly in it. And by the time that actually had happened, I kind of lost interest in it at all. Since then, I've only bought one expansion for the game, and that was after Pathfinder was already fully available for it. I did return for a bit in between then and now for specific features. It was during Legion that we no longer had to pay for past expansions, and that got me back to check out the Warlords of Draenor content that I had missed out on, and I began playing quite a bit again with all that to keep me occupied. The changes to leveling at the very end of that expansion were great, and I spent a lot of time leveling up my different alts from the various points that I'd left them at to just about ready for the current content, which I then tore through pretty quickly after Battle for Azeroth, the next expansion, came out, and I could play Legion content. So when it was on sale for half off, and when Pathfinder was fully available, Battle for Azeroth became the first expansion I had bought since Pandaria. I was officially on the wagon again, playing current content. Or off the wagon. I don't know. I can never figure out which is supposed to be the bad one in that metaphor, but whichever one means that they had me hooked once again, that's where I was. So it was, and so it still might be today, if it weren't for a strange set of circumstances which sent me on some kind of a roller coaster ride, from anticipation to repulsion, then from acceptance to feeling cheated and given the finger. When the WoW Classic launch happened, I was taking a break from the game, as I do sometimes, just keeping up with the news. And while I was interested in the vanilla experience, I wasn't in too much of a hurry, as the Burning Crusade was already brutal enough for me back in the day. But then the Blitzchung controversy occurred. So, like I said before, I don't want to get too into these things. That's outside of the scope of this video. And I'm not sure if that situation would have actually made me quit the games, since I already wasn't subbed. But it sure didn't give me any more motivation to get out the credit card and swipe either. But time moves on, and people can forgive, right? A little less than a year later, Classic was doing well, and the Burning Crusade Classic was definitely on the way, if not confirmed at that time. I don't remember exactly, but the point is there was a huge hype train in the WoW creator space about how dope Shadowlands was going to be, and totally make up for the sins of the game's past bad systems and shoddy storytelling, and WoW is back, fam! Well, I don't do pre-orders at all, as a general rule, and Shadowlands had no flight at launch, and I don't buy expansions I can't fly in, so I was still in no hurry. Then the reviews were in, and people were not very impressed, so I definitely was in no hurry. But there was still the matter of eventually getting started in Classic, in preparation for the opening of the Dark Portal and the launch of the Burning Crusade, which is exactly what I was planning to do when the next bit of slap-in-the-face news came around: the removal of the option for 1-month prepaid time purchases from the Blizzard store. This didn't seem to affect many people, and I haven't heard anyone I follow explain this well at all, so I'm gonna try and give it a shot. When you pay for game time with a subscription, you pick the increment of 30, 90, or 180 days with a bit of a discount for the larger spans of time, and your card is charged at the appropriate interval, allowing you to play uninterrupted. That did not change at all here, and like I said, I imagine this covers the majority of players, so there was not much uproar at all. However, the prepaid game time in the store is useful for a few reasons. People with limited funds or uncertain or irregular income is one group that I've heard mentioned, and that is a good point. There's another group that I know about because I'm a part of it, and that's people who just don't play WoW all the damn time. Prepaid game time had a few different lengths of time available too, but I honestly don't remember what they were, because I only ever got the 30-day package. That was like the point of doing prepaid time on the store. And that is exactly what was removed here, with 60 days being the new shortest span of time available. Ever since my return as a lurker, instead of just letting my account run until I say stop, it was actually easier to just pay for a month, do my tour of Azeroth and some leveling, and by the time the month was up, I was ready to do other things anyway, so I would just let it expire until the next time I wanted to hop in. If I was really into it, I could hop on the site and pay again, but it was nice to have that reminder. You've been playing this pretty regularly for a month now. Are you sure you don't have better things to do right now? So, I kind of feel personally insulted by the whole thing. I can still get the same effect today by starting a subscription, then canceling it, but that's part of the problem. This is like an ancient gimmick to grab extra money from forgetful and or busy people. You can cancel at any time. So, a long story short, I never got in for the original Classic. But hey, if the Burning Crusade wasn't enough for me, there was still Classic Era, with that same vanilla experience to slog through for some laughs. But in the meantime, I really wasn't in any hurry to give these greedy people any more money. I'd get there eventually, probably, so long as Blizzard didn't do anything else to dissuade me from wanting to pay them. Then, a couple of months after the Burning Crusade Classic came out, the Cosby Suite news came out. Once again, this isn't about the particulars, but I will speak in general terms here. sexual harassment is generally not cool. Doubly so at the workplace. That's all that needs to be said. But once again, it was just too easy for me to just stay away from that mess. So that is exactly what I did. After enough time had passed for Blizzard to clean house, and after long enough that any sub from me would not give them any laurels to rest on, I figured I might be back. And hopefully by then they'd have come up with something legit to actually win me back. I think somewhere deep down, I knew that I was going to jump in on Wrath Classic one way or another despite all of that, because I watched the live stream on Blizzard's announcement day this April, and it was going really well for me to start. I really enjoyed the reveal cinematic of the Dragonflight expansion for the main game, and remain cautiously optimistic about the dragon riding feature they announced, which, if it's what I would consider to be reasonable, they will have finally found the right balance between convenient travel for players without trivializing the world they've just built. And if that's the case, I might actually get in on this one while the content is current. So with that in mind, I was already pretty stoked by the time they got to the part that I actually wanted to see, the Wrath Classic reveal. Putra speaks. The Lich King's theme plays in the background. I feel shivers go down my spine as I watch that cinematic. By the time they get to feature discussions, I practically have my credit card in hand, ready to sub all over the place immediately afterwards. And then, lead producer Holly Longdale uttered those fateful words. Dungeon Finder is not a good fit for our community, in regard to the randoms that I practically lived in during Wrath. To rub it in, WoW game director Ian Hazzikostas chimed in, but today, you can do that in Shadowlands. Really, Ian? I can play random Wrath of the Lich King dungeons with Wrath of the Lich King classes, talents, and combat in Shadowlands today? Which menu is that option in? Because it seems to me like all the players there are doing Shadowlands dungeons with Shadowlands crappy borrowed power systems, and time walking every once in a while with Shadowlands crappy borrowed power systems. I can't blame him too much, as that stuff was obviously scripted for him. The closed captioning was too far off for that to be just a transcription error. He probably just went off script a little bit, and they uploaded what they had wrote for him as the transcript. Also, other news out of that, no the Burning Crusade era, or even Classic era servers anymore, by the way. So, everybody in Classic is either doing Wrath or Season of Mastery. And were they serious, though? I wasn't expecting that. The Dungeon Finder was like a signature feature of that expansion. You know, the one that I said earlier had given WoW its highest subscriber count of all time. It's what I personally had been waiting for all along, as it was going to finally make classic World of Warcraft playable for a busy guy like myself. You see, the best option for doing group content without a lot of hassle would be to join a guild. But I really don't have the time for a guild, and I don't want the responsibility that comes with being in a guild anymore, let alone the loot drama and everything else that comes with it. Dungeon Finder was a response to exactly this. An excellent automated tool, which simply asks the player what role are they willing to perform in the group, and they could choose specific dungeons to do if they wanted, or allow the tool to make a random selection from all the level appropriate dungeons. Then it would put together an appropriate group and select a dungeon based on all the players' chosen parameters. The players each got a prompt, and when all members of the group had confirmed they were ready, it would teleport everyone to the beginning of the dungeon. It was a very fast way to get a group together, and required no commitment until it was time to actually go into the dungeon. If anyone did decline the prompt, there would be another player to take their place in the queue shortly. You were pretty much guaranteed to be in a group in 30 minutes or less. Blizzard's proposal for a group finding system in Wrath Classic is just an in-game bulletin board. They say it's a more social solution, but it seems to me to remove almost as much of the social interaction as the original Dungeon Finder did, but still allows for a lot of the negatives that come with grouping just via chat, which Dungeon Finder alleviated. And funny enough, I think the real problem everyone had with Dungeon Finder is already being solved with the recently announced design pillars for Classic. Because the original Dungeon Finder would pool players from many different servers to the extent that if you were grouped with someone, you would never expect to see them again in game. And a lot of people abuse that sense of anonymity for purposes of trolling and other shenanigans. But the developers of Classic have made it clear that there won't be a cross-server anything wherever it could be helped. If we didn't get grouped with players from other servers, then we could deal with bad behavior as we would in any other group on the server, still maintain that sense of community that is so important to the players of WoW Classic. So Dungeon Finder could have been my best option for something to do, other than the same world content I've done dozens of times before, with the same stats and systems as it was when I first did it, because that would be great for a month-long nostalgia tour, but not for any real ongoing play, which is what I think Blizzard and I both wanted from this release. Then I question myself, do I actually represent a significant portion of the potential audience here? How many of those millions of former Wrath players are out there who are just like me and would gladly join the folks that are already paying monthly fee just to play this game with over a decade's worth of the extra garbage and system stripped out? How many of those people suddenly lost interest? Just like I mostly have. And how many of the people from the current community were they expecting to lose if Wrath of the Lich King Classic was to be an accurate representation of the Wrath of the Lich King experience? How many of those would they have kept if they had offered the option to stay in Classic or TBC era servers? Is that a net gain or a net loss after you figure all that in? Now, I don't know the answers to all those questions, but I don't think Blizzard does either. And if it were me, I'd say the safer bet is to try to keep everyone they can paying $15 a month for as long as they can get them to do it. Even at the cost of a few extra servers running 24/7, it's got to be worth it. So, I guess that should have been the last straw for me, but like I said before, I knew I was getting in on the Wrath Classic train one way or another. I had been thinking about doing a video about one of a few topics for a while now, and I realized that if it was going to be WoW, I couldn't just run promotional cinematics on screen. In order to rant about the game, I had to actually cross through that forbidden door, install the game, pay my $15 plus tax, all while jumping through the new hoops in the store that have been keeping me away. That's actually one of the main reasons I decided to go with this idea, because I got to frame all of that as something I was doing as part of a project. Because if it were just for my own enjoyment, I probably wouldn't be able to bring myself to do it. And of course, now that I have access for the rest of the month, I might as well get my classic characters started, just in case Blizzard regains their sanity in regard to Wrath of the Lich King Classic and the Dungeon Finder feature. So I guess that's more than enough from me for now. Turned out I had a lot more to say than I expected. A little background on this, I obviously had the idea back in April when they did their reveal, I really wrote this and made my first attempt at recording it back in June. It didn't quite come together the way I would have liked, so I kind of stalled on it. And at that time, I really hadn't seen much conversation about it. In between then and now, you've seen a lot more. So I really find it interesting, the die-hard, no Dungeon Finder people. Like, I don't get exactly what it is that having Dungeon Finder in the game is gonna ruin your experience. Like, I could see if you were forced to use it, why not the Dungeon Finder plus this bulletin board, plus good old grouping in chat, looking for group. The only way that I can see that Dungeon Finder takes away from the experience of a non-Dungeon Finder player is it makes them harder to find people that don't want to be in their pug when they're looking to put together a pug. Those people would rather be doing the Dungeon Finder experience and have to be forced into the pug system. That's really the only benefit. And if your system is such that you have to force people into it, is that really the best choice for the health of the game? Just a little something I've thought of looking at the conversation going on here. So that's really enough from me now. But just one more thing before I go. You want to know another one of the major things I considered in favor of me doing a WoW video, even though this will not be a WoW channel? It's because it's been well established that when you do WoW on YouTube, you get to play badass zone music from the old world in the background and for your outro. So cue the badass old world zone music. No, not that one. Give me the Barons. Alright. That's what I'm talking about. So I appreciate everyone who stuck around with me until the end. You must be my kind of people. I don't have anything to plug here, so I guess just please do all the YouTube stuff. Subscribe, comment, like. That way you can help me spread the word. Thanks.